A confirmed tornado was located near Ashton, or 9 miles west of Rochelle, moving northeast at 40 miles per hour.
Wow. It's going to get those grain bins, dude.
It's going over their place right now. Terry, now, please, let's go.
911, where's your emergency?
Fairdale has been leveled by the tornado.
People walking around, they were shocked. They were in shock. And it was scary. It was very frightening.
It was a day etched in the memories of many. April 9th, 2015, a powerful EF4 tornado tore through northern Illinois, striking Rochelle and devastating the small community of Fairdale. In mere moments, homes were reduced to rubble, lives forever changed, and a tight-knit town faced unimaginable loss. Even in the darkest moments, the light of resilience began to shine. Neighbors became family, and strangers became lifelines. 10 years later, the spirit of these communities remains unbroken. Stories of courage, compassion, and determination continue to inspire. Thank you for joining us. I'm First Warn Weather Chief Meteorologist Candace King. Here in Fairdale, the echoes of that devastating evening remain, but so too does the spirit of this community. In the next half hour, we'll honor the 2 lives lost and hear from those who carry their memory forward. We'll listen to the stories of people who responded without hesitation and see how communities came together to rebuild. But first, meteorologist Joey Marino spoke with the meteorologist from the National Weather Service about the conditions that led up to that devastating event.
Just the devastation and just how it affected, dozens and dozens, if not hundreds or more people.
A day that even 10 years later, Mike Bardot, Kevin D'Onofrio, and the dedicated staff at the National Weather Service in Chicago have etched in the back of their minds.
It's certainly one of our kind of typical idealized spring setups when it comes to severe weather potential. The threat had actually been anticipated for even close to a week beforehand in terms of severe weather potential, not so much for an outbreak at that point, but I think it was about 2 days or 3 days before we started mentioning the possible severe weather outbreak, and we don't mention that very often.
With every forecast comes an uncertainty that could put a question mark on the day's full severe potential, such as the thunderstorms from that morning.
Right, yeah, that was a challenging day there because we had a round of morning thunderstorms there, so that certainly brings to some uncertainty, but the mechanisms were all in place there. There was two strong fronts, a strong cold front and a strong warm front that was advancing northward. The intersection of those boundaries is going to be positioned right over northern Illinois in the afternoon.
Once the morning thunderstorms moved out, all the necessary weather ingredients for significant severe weather, including strong tornadoes, moved in at just the right time.
When our forecasters first saw the supercells developing, that we issued some severe thunderstorm warnings, but the conversations were already started about this thing could turn into a tornado fairly quickly.
It was at 6:35 in the evening when the National Weather Service would issue the first tornado warning.
And we didn't just issue a normal tornado warning. We mentioned that this would be a considerable tornado, so not just your normal average EF0, EF1 type tornado. So that significant information was passed along the tornado warning from the start.
Shortly after the warning was issued at 6:39 p.m., the tornado touched down about 1 mile northeast of the village of Franklin Grove. The tornado would then move northeast, intensifying to EF3 strength as it moved through the northwest side of Rochelle.
There's a subdivision on the northwest side of Rochelle. There were probably half dozen or so homes that were just totally destroyed. And then you continued on towards Highway 64 and 251 where the restaurant was, and just more levels of destruction.
Several pieces of debris from those areas were taken with the tornado as it traveled into DeKalb County.
We had some of our farms that were covered with debris from the tornado, just a little bit southwest of here. And the debris that we had came from Lindenwood and from the Rochelle Grubstakers area.
At 6:58 p.m., the second tornado warning was issued, the one that would include Fairdale. Embedded were the words, "A confirmed large and extremely dangerous tornado was located near Hillcrest, moving northeast at 45 miles per hour."
You continue on into Fairdale and all the damage that occurred there, intermittently along that entire path. It was a much higher degree of damage than I think many of us had actually in person had seen before up until that point.
After passing over rural terrain, the tornado finally dissipated at 7:20 in the evening over Cherry Valley Road, ending its 30-mile and 41-minute path of destruction. Once surveys were concluded, the National Weather Service gave this tornado an EF4 rating with winds upwards of 200 miles per hour. Historically for northern Illinois, a tornado of this magnitude, one that falls 1 mile per hour short of meeting EF5 criteria, doesn't happen very often.
Across our forecast area, it's on average every 15 to 20 years or so. Prior to this time, the strongest tornado that we had seen in the area was the Plainfield tornado from August of 1990. We have not seen an EF4 in our local forecast area since the Rochelle Fairdale tornado in 2015.
What do Mike and Kevin remember most about that day? For Mike, it was seeing the nearly half-mile wide monster tornado before his very eyes via live stream.
The combination of receiving reports, seeing the signature on the radar, and then also, having a live stream from the internet of the storm itself, of the tornado itself. You couldn't see the damage that was occurring, but you could see the tornado.
For Kevin, it was the communication and the teamwork being done in the office, the urge for people to have the latest information so they can quickly make a decision for themselves, their loved ones, and their neighbors.
The mood in the room, certainly it changes. You really, we're always focused on those severe threats, but when it gets to that level, you really get locked in and focused on the mission and making sure that we're communicating together, not only internally, but also with the media and with the public to make sure that that flow of information is constantly going to keep, because people are craving for information in those situations, so it's keeping that flow of information going so people can make the right decisions.
Communication played a vital role that night, not only at the National Weather Service in the time leading up to the tornado, but also in the search and rescue efforts after. Residents in Fairdale found themselves climbing out from piles of debris and rubble that moments earlier they called home. People in neighboring communities immediately rushed to the small town to help in any way they could. One couple tells me what it was like, and family of the two victims share their stories. Next.
You're making this for the sake of a 10-year remembrance. I'm not going to say anniversary or celebration or remembrance of the tornado. 2 lives lost, my wife and Jackie.
A remembrance of an early spring night that'll live with so many for years to come. A night that not only changed the landscape of northern Illinois, but the lives of those who lived through it.
I've never experienced anything so gut-wrenching in my life. The friend that called us told us that they couldn't find Mom. I had no idea that couldn't find Mom meant that what was going to happen in the next few days. I mean, we got there and the town was absolutely unrecognizable.
That town, Fairdale, nestled away in the northwest corner of DeKalb County, perhaps not known to many who didn't live or grow up there, now gone.
And it was scary. It was very frightening. So the further north that I went into town, the worse it got. And I was talking to myself. I kept saying, oh my God, everything's gone. Oh my God.
Jim and Sandy Brooke live on a farm just outside Fairdale. They weren't home when the tornado happened, but quickly learned just how close it was to their farm and the devastation that followed.
We were learning how bad this tornado actually was. So I said to Sandy, I said, we got to come home. I had spent quite a few years with a couple different fire departments, so I had a lot of training in fire services, and I knew there was going to be search and rescue based on what I was hearing.
Arriving right behind the Kirkland Fire Department, Jim and Sandy began their search and rescue, remaining vigilant of what was around them.
I could see wires down everywhere, and I was worried, are these wires hot? The chance of getting electrocuted still out here. With all this water, you could get electrocuted through the ground, not even touching the wire. Propane tanks hissing.
The devastation and destruction continued as Jim and Sandy moved further into town, as fear of lives lost soon became reality.
One of the people that passed away up there was Jackie Klossa. She was such a sweetheart.
Jackie, afraid of spiders, didn't go into her basement the night of the tornado.
So when I saw her house and it was gone, it was just gone, I knew who she was. Somebody lost a mom, somebody lost a grandma. I lost a friend.
For Jackie's daughter, Yvette DeWispelaire, the last 10 years have been hard. Memories of her mom found throughout her home, a cross hangs on her wall, cut from a maple tree in Jackie's yard just days after the tornado.
Oh, it's hard because once in a while, you know, it's like I want to pick up the phone and call her. And now we have grandbabies. That we had one that was 4 years old when she died, and she just doted on her. Now there are 2 more with one on the way, and I wish she could be here for them.
Jackie lived in Fairdale most of her life. After the tornado, she couldn't be found.
They said they couldn't find her, and I came home and I called every hospital thinking, I mean, I was sure she was gone, but just thinking maybe they took her somewhere and didn't know it was her.
Jackie wasn't found until the next day.
Nobody was allowed in because they couldn't find her. They had to bring in heavy equipment, and I was told they brought in dogs.
A proud cancer survivor taken too soon by the tornado.
Mom was everybody's friend. Everybody loved her, and she just lit up the room. Just lit up the room. She liked to go to lunch, she liked to go shopping, she liked to laugh, and she liked to have a good time and tell jokes, and some of them were funny and some of them weren't. And
the best way Yvette describes her mom?
She was wonderful. She was my mom and she was my friend.
Many still tell Yvette they miss her mom, like those on the committee for the Veterans Memorial in Kirkland, a memorial Jackie helped raise money for and bring to life.
Mom was part of the steering committee, you know, and that was something she was really proud of. She'd go sit there every morning before she went to work and have a cup of coffee with her brother, with the boys, because all 3 of my uncles are on it.
Jackie gave a couple speeches at the memorial, but never considered herself a public speaker. But she was extremely patriotic and very proud.
She was really proud of it. And she should be. It's a beautiful memorial.
In the darkness that seemed like it would never end, there was light. Light from the volunteers who came from all ends to help the small town.
I had a friend from high school who came the first day, and she said, "There will be help. Don't worry, there will be help." I had no idea. There was help. I mean, it looked like there was no light at the end of the tunnel. It showed up in droves.
On the far eastern edge of DeKalb County sits a small house that Clem Schultz now calls home.
I like it. It's wide open. I can see Hampshire from here. I can see Genoa from here. And I can see the edges of Marengo.
A quiet place he shares with his dog, Benji.
Benji, he's got a big part of my life. We get up together in the morning. We go to bed together at night.
A different life than the one he had when he lived in Fairdale with his late wife, Jerry.
They've been different than they would have been if the tornado hadn't happened. Lost my wife. So I got different circle of friends, my Shriners and my Masonic brothers, maybe some people that I wouldn't have met before. It's been interesting.
It's a home filled with pictures of Jerry, memories of when he was in the Navy, his time as a Shriner and Mason, the bicentennial voyage he took as a Boy Scout leader, and Boyd's Bears, a collection that Clem and Jerry started shortly after they were married.
There was a mama bear, and she had 2 cubs. And it was expensive, but I bought the damn thing. And she laughed, and I laughed, and we started a collection of Boyd's Bears. And at the tornado, we probably had 300 or 400.
Since the tornado, Clem has replaced some of the bears, but not all.
But I'm still looking for that mama bear with the 2 cubs. But I want to get my she-bear.
One particular bear, given to him at a garage sale, sits on the shelf next to the pictures of Jerry, holding a special place in his heart.
It isn't the she-bear, but it was a Boyd's Bear with a pink house coat on and hair and curlers and everything. She brought it to me. She says, "You can have this." That brought tears to my eyes.
In June of 1990, Clem and Jerry were married just before Clem's 60th birthday. In August of that year, they had a ceremony at their farm with their family and friends just outside Hampshire. Shortly after, they moved to Fairdale, finding a home to officially call their own.
It was the ugliest piece of trash you ever want to see in your life.
It took about a year, but they fixed it up into a beautiful home, a home they shared for several years before the night of the tornado, taking the life of Jerry.
Yeah, I was on the second floor looking out a bedroom window, and there's this tornado coming up, and I could see the neighbor's house and everything out behind me. Well, I wound up on the first floor on top of my wife, who was kind of almost in the basement. We didn't have much of a basement. That's why we weren't down there. The day we had her celebration of life would have been our 25th wedding anniversary. That kind of made it a little bit more painful, but memorable.
Clem still visits Fairdale often, visiting a plaque and bench at a park that sits in town.
And yes, I go out there often. Probably will all the rest of my life.
The last 10 years have given Clem a different outlook on life.
I've taken a different view of how life is and should be and could be. If I could go back to what it was the day before the tornado, I'd sure as hell do it. I'd still have my wife.
At the height of danger, there are heroes that face it head-on, bringing help to those who need it. On April 9th, 2015, members of the Kirkland Fire Department became those heroes to the residents of Fairdale. The chief and deputy chief tell meteorologist Owen Zarley what it was like to help those in need in their own backyard. Next.
The Weather Service got it right. They were calling for severe weather for days ahead of the event, so we were talking.
Leading up to April 9th, 2015, the Kirkland Fire Department knew there was the potential for severe storms. However, what ended up happening was nothing they could have expected.
A spotter had picked up a tornado in Rochelle, and it didn't take long for me to figure out that the tornado was actually headed in our direction.
I live north of town on a farm, and I started throwing stuff at my truck, clothes, flashlights, And I looked over the hill, and I could see the tornado, and it was massive.
Kirkland Fire Department Chief Chad Connell, along with the Deputy Chief Carl Bruder, recount the moment they both realized the Rochelle-Fairdale tornado was different than anyone before.
And looked out to the west of my house, and I could see the tornado clear as day. And then the sirens went off, the phones went off. Was getting ready to head to my basement when the tones dropped. Houses down in Fairdale.
It didn't take long for the Kirkland Fire Department to arrive just outside of Fairdale after the tornado moved through.
I know what I was getting into, and that happens a lot. You have a lot of scenarios going on in your head, but nothing quite to that.
Kirkland Fire Department Chief Chad Connell, along with the Deputy Chief Carl Bruder, recount the moment they both realized the Rochelle-Fairdale tornado was different than anyone before.
We had buildings that were unstable and people that were in these basements, so our guys really had to be careful, take care of the threats from the propane tanks, and so there was a lot of hazards.
Jim and Sandy Brook both arrived on scene right behind the Kirkland Fire Department, where they also helped in immediate search and rescue.
And we just got across the railroad tracks on the south side of town. And that's all the farther you could get because there was so much debris on Main Street going north.
Biggest challenge was you don't know who was home and who wasn't. So accountability was a big obstacle for us.
Although the damage was extensive, the number one priority of the Kirkland Fire Department was figuring out who was home and who wasn't.
The search and rescue went very well that night. We had Division 8 and Division 6's TRT teams. These are the technical rescue teams. So we had a lot of boots on the ground.
Teams came from multiple surrounding communities to help the Kirkland Fire Department, allowing for quick success in search and rescue efforts.
I think the biggest thing that stood out for me was the length of time it took me to actually realize what happened to the town.
The pure shock and adrenaline from the tornado suppressed any realization from Chief Connell until later that night. However, in the case of tragedy, lessons were able to be learned.
The fire service revolves around lessons learned. We want to know how to learn from that. And so with this event, it taught us the importance of unified command. I really think the story is the events after the tornado that really showed community. But to see how the community responded to this event, we had people from the western suburbs. We had some days we had 1,000 people out here helping with the cleanup efforts.
Communities far and wide would end up coming to help neighbors after the tornado, providing food and help with the cleanup process.
I would kind of like to add that I really thought that the Kirkland Fire Department did an outstanding job.
People have come up to me and said things, and you're like, okay, I guess I did, but everything was such a blur. But like I said, I'm very proud to be a small part of the fire service, especially that day.
The thought of rebuilding an entire town may seem overwhelming, but the combination of the right people, new ideas, and smart designs quickly bring new life into the small town. Meteorologist Jordan Wolf shares the stories of the men and women responsible for this task right after this.
In the immediate aftermath of a disaster, you will find a lot of hurt, but you will also find a lot of help and healing. Many of the people saw the devastation firsthand and were immediately moved to action.
No idea what they needed to do to start, how they were going to get the money to start, and so forth. And that was a very humbling experience.
Bill Nicholas was an integral part of the rebuilding process for the first 9 months after the tornado. His experience as a city manager offered a unique perspective to help with the recovery effort.
I was pretty restless for a couple of days, and then a group was organizing to possibly help with the volunteer effort.
That group was the DeKalb County Long-Term Recovery Committee. Their goal was to come alongside the residents of Fairdale to help them rebuild.
There were some other volunteer groups, organized volunteer groups that were there, but they were going to pull out. And so our big question and challenge was what happens when these groups leave, and who is going to be there to help pick up the pieces.
That was the call to action that needed an answer.
Our role, we thought, was to try to bring some organization to it and to, from the very beginning, be connected to the residents and to get out to Fairdale and have a presence there.
Bill, alongside a team of volunteers, made a point to be involved in the community every day. They got to know the people of Fairdale and learn what they needed. That team involved around 8 or 10 caseworkers, including Mary Jo Marshall.
The main thing was to rebuild the town, to help these people rebuild their homes if they wanted to stay, cover the losses that were not covered by the insurance company. Those kind of were our objectives, and we were in and out of here in a year and a half.
They set up a trailer in town and were there every day answering questions and providing support.
Our message very clearly was, we're going to be with you until you don't need us anymore. And maybe they had heard that from others, but then people leave. We stayed.
One of the biggest needs was a new sewer system.
Their old systems were not modern enough to allow them to even rebuild, so the county thought a lot of people were going to have to move out of Fairdale. We instead designed and built a system for them, a community septic system that handled all of that, built sewer lines in the streets, collected all the septic, took it to an off-site septic system that handled all of it. We were fortunate enough to be able to design that for them.
Kevin Bungie was a DeKalb County board member who also runs a civil engineering firm. He was able to use his skills to design the sewer system at no cost beyond the installation.
There was just no way we were going to charge for the work but with the devastation that had happened here. And there were so many people hurting, so many people out of their houses, so many people that had nowhere to go that, no, there was never a question of charging for that work. We did what we could, but still it was a small part of what needed to be done out here.
The sewer system was just one of the large-scale projects that had to be finished before the town could rebuild. Other projects included rebuilding roads and bringing internet into the town. In total, over $1.7 million was privately raised just to help rebuild Fairdale. These 3 individuals were just a small piece of the process into rebuilding the town. There were countless other volunteers who helped with small things, such as cleaning yards and providing meals.
Take a deep breath and step back and appreciate the volunteers. There aren't enough thank yous. There just weren't enough thank yous.
Mary Jo, Kevin, Bill, and all the other volunteers on the DeKalb County Long-Term Recovery Team saw a need and filled the gap, however they could.
Bill Nicholas put Fairdale on his back for a year. And I don't know if there'd be a Fairdale if there wasn't for a Bill Nicholas.
The town even took up a collection to dedicate a plaque for Bill and all his work in helping the town get back on their feet.
I needed a purpose, I guess. I knew I was going to go back to work, but I couldn't have found a better purpose. If you're lucky, maybe once, maybe twice in a lifetime, you get an opportunity to show who you are. And I'm glad I did.
10 years may seem like a long time, but for many who experienced it firsthand, it still feels like yesterday. While Fairdale and Rochelle are often at the center of this story, the devastation reached far beyond. Places in Lee, Ogle, DeKalb, and Boone counties were all impacted that night. Families, farmers, and business owners faced unimaginable loss. But through it all, the resilience of these communities has shined. Those that experienced firsthand the power of Mother Nature will never forget the strength that followed. Neighbors coming together, rebuilding homes, supporting one another, and proving that strength comes in unity.
Yeah, it's hard to believe it's 10 years coming up on this already, and we forget so quickly. I think, all of us people have short memories sometimes.
It was just overwhelming, the amount of people that they knew there was a problem and they were going to do whatever they could to help. That part of it was pretty cool, because it's like, yeah, that's America.